Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Krishna. I am Rajarsi Dasa. Welcome to Hare Krishna today. We're continuing our series entitled An Overview of the Bhagavad Gita. Let us recap on the sections that we covered so far in this series. We're looking at the introduction, chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. The first chapter is entitled Observing the Armies on the Battlefield. So from verses 1 to 13, we saw preparations for the battle, Duryodhana's diplomacy and so on. From verses 14 through 20, we saw some signs of victory for the Pandavas, the blowing of the conch shell and so on, that shattered the hearts of the Kauravas. The blowing of the conch shells, these are symbols of Krishna also. But then, from verses 21 to 27, we look at Arjuna's request. Krishna as Bhakta Vatsala, serving his devotee. Arjuna said, please drive my chariot between the two armies so I can see. But then, when Arjuna was present in this situation, then the problem. All souls of this world are affected by a disease, this bodily conception of life. So in this ignorance, Arjuna couldn't function, so he gave in from verses 28 through 46, 5 reasons Arjuna gave as to why he won't fight. 1, he was feeling sorry, compassion. 2, he said, I won't be happy, I won't be able to enjoy. 3, he said, sin will overcome us if we slay these aggressors. Then he said that this will cause a problem, that if we kill out these persons, then the women will be unprotected and there'll be unwanted children, and this will cause destruction of dynasty because people won't be able to perform the rituals beneficial to the ancestors and all of that. So, and then Arjuna couldn't decide. Indecision. He couldn't decide. He said, neither do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. So he gave these 5 reasons for not wanting to fight. Then we dealt with in our last program this idea that he was arguing, but then he came to the point that I am a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. He said, you please instruct me. And what Krishna did? Immediately he took the position of master and he started to chastise Arjuna severely, calling him a fool. Because there are many people in this world who think themselves to be learned because they're good with some material science, some material knowledge, they know about this, they know about that. But actually real learning means to know what is matter, what is spirit, and who is the origin of both. Or in other words, Gyan means to know what is matter and spirit, or what is body and soul. And Vigyan means to know who is the source of everything that exists, and what is my connection, what is my duty towards my source. That is Vigyan. So, Arjuna was called a fool by Krishna. And Krishna says, Nanu shochanti panditaha. One who is pandit, one who is learned. He doesn't lament because he knows that spirit souls are eternal. Nothing can happen to the soul. So this is where Krishna actually begins. So Arjuna surrenders, then Krishna, he chastises Arjuna, and this is where Krishna actually begins his teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. So from verses 11 through 30, we are dealing with Krishna's instructions to Arjuna that refutes Arjuna's first argument for not wanting to fight, compassion. Krishna attacks Arjuna's first argument. So he begins by saying, chastising him, and then he says, Na tvevaham jatu nasam na tvang nime janadhipaha na chaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam mataha param. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings present, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. First lesson in spiritual life is that we are eternal. Krishna is saying, I am eternal, you are eternal, and everyone else is eternal. What's the problem then? Next verse 13 he says, Dehinosmin yatha dehi kumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. That this eternal soul that we are speaking about, it is embodied, it is within a body. And now it is passing through this body, kumara, from boyhood, yauvana, youth, jara, old age, then tata dehantara prapti, then it passes into another body at death. But dhiras tatra na muhyate. Dhira, the word dhira means a sober person. When we speak about a sober person, we don't mean someone who didn't go to the rum shop or he didn't take a few drinks or something. No. Sober person means a person who knows things as they are, what is what. Dhira. Dhira literally means undisturbed, unaffected. Undisturbed means because you know the reality, your eternal soul. So Krishna says, Dhiras tatra na muhyati. A dhira is not disturbed. Now, the very next verse, he gives us the formula for becoming a dhira. He says, Matra sparshas tu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama paino nityas tang titikshas bharata. He said this non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, this heat, cold, this pleasure, pain, all these things. He said these things, they just arise out of sense perception. Matra sparshas, senses, objects. Oh, the elements are too cold, I am feeling cold. It's too hot. Matra sparshas, sensual perception. bodily feelings. He says, but these things, they come and go. This is the world of duality. World of duality. Good, bad, heat, cold, happiness, distress, fame, infamy. But Krishna is saying, titikshava. Titikshava means tolerate. You have to learn to tolerate. Do we want to attain perfection in the human form of life without having to undergo any tolerance? Do we think we can perfect our existence without this type of approach? We are living in a big illusion. Even on the material platform, people say, no pain, no gain. You're not willing to tolerate some pain, then you won't gain anything. So that type of approach in this world is always there, but it is a matter of whether it is for the spiritual benefit or the material benefit. But people are always willing to put out some work to tolerate hardship. It is just a matter of what they want to achieve. Some want to achieve some bodily success, some immediate sense gratification or prayas, and others want shreyas or the ultimate goal. So Krishna is saying about this candidate, Yang hina vyatayanti ete purusham purusharshava sama dukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpati. Krishna said the very next verse he says that the candidate for liberation is the person who is equipoised. He doesn't get carried away by pleasures, and he doesn't get carried away by suffering. So what does he do? He is fixed in his spiritual duties, in the execution of our sadhana. Sadhana is the means for attaining sadhya, the goal. So we have spiritual discipline, we have spiritual practices that are prescribed by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. The scriptures has given things we should do, and the spiritual master, the Guru and the Sadhus, they've prescribed these things for us in our life. So in executing this sadhana, this means for achieving sadhya, the goal, we cannot afford to be carried away by duality, carried away by sense pleasure, carried away by suffering. Bad karma come, I drop all religious activities and I just go running doctor, running obya man, looking for solutions. Krishna is telling Arjuna, these things come and go. Tam titikshasva, titikshava, tolerate. Why? Because you are eternal soul. Right now you're just affected by bodily conditions, but tolerate. It will go. So become a dhira. Learn to become tolerant. Soul cannot die. Nothing can happen to the soul. So Krishna drives the point in by in many ways, saying Najayate Mriyate Va Kadachan. For this soul, there's no birth, there's no death for a soul. Nainam Chindanti Shastrani, Nainam Dahati Pavaka, Nachainam Kledayanti Apo, Nashoshayati Maruta. That this soul cannot be cut to pieces by any weapon, it cannot be burned by fire, it cannot be moistened by water, it cannot be withered by the wind. You have to come to this platform, at least theoretically, when we know that we are eternal spiritual being then we have to be willing to tolerate bodily inconveniences under Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. The scriptures are prescribing tapasya, penance. So Lord Rishabhadev, in Bhagavad, he says, of all the souls in this world that have taken on bodies, material bodies, the ones that have a human form should not labor hard like vidbhujas, stool eaters, mean hogs and dogs, meaning a human being shouldn't be running after sense gratification like hogs and dogs. Instead, he says, tapo divyam. He should be willing to perform divine austerity. We should be willing to undergo tapasya. Tapasya means to undergo some penance, some difficulty for greater gain. So he says tapo divyam, divine penance. Because everybody on the material platform, they are willing to take some kind of sacrifice to get some greater material gain. But when we speak about tapo divyam, divine austerity, you may have to chant japa. Japa means Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the prescribed method, mantra yoga in the age of Kali Yuga, the prescribed method for this age. But as soon as we start chanting mantra, man means the mind and tra means to free. But as soon as we start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the mantra that has the power to free the mind from all material things, this mind wants to free itself from the mantra and just run to all the objects, latch on to sense gratification. As Krishna said, dhyayato vishayan pungsa, contemplating the objects of sense gratification. The mind just wants to go as soon as we start chanting. So tapasya in this case means from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, we have to bring it back. Yoga practice is very exciting. It's a challenging thing. You sit with your beads and you're going to chant Hare Krishna mantra, but you're out for a battle. Because this mind has conditioning and misbehavior whimsical from many, many lifetimes. So as soon as you want to go into some meditation, into some samadhi, this mind, chanchalam, chanchal, going here, going there, flickering. So Krishna says, yato nischalati manas chanchalam ashtiram. From wherever it wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, you bring it back under control. You bring it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hear the sound vibration. This is the type of approach we need to have. Tapasya. So there are different types of tapasya. This is mental. Bringing back the mind under control. But then, there are some physical austerities also. In that, people just like to go barking about. They just want to go uttering this, that, croaking like frogs. Uncontrolled tongue. So it says that just as that person like to speak all nonsense, speak this, speak that, speak about all kind of things. Even if it is nonsense they have to say, but I want to be the one to say it. Communicate this, that. So the candidate for spiritual life, it says vacho vegam. Vacho veg means the urge to speak. Vacho vegam manasa veg. This thinking process. Jiva veg, the urge of the tongue, which is described as, of all the senses, the tongue is most voracious and difficult to control. The tongue wants to enjoy this, eat this, taste that, taste that. Hmm? So vacho veg, manasa veg, jiva veg, udara veg, upashta veg. The filling of the stomach, then the genitals, the sexual urge. So it says that a person who wants perfection in life, he has to learn to tolerate these urges. It's not that you become a dead stone and there's no desires and nothing will happen again. No, Krishna says this spiritualist is a person who, Krishna describes later on in this chapter, Apuryamanam achala pratishtam samudra mahapa pravishanti yadvat. Tadvat yan. Kama, due to lust, all these senses, they're just bringing in. Eyes see this, the ears hear that, the tongue wants to taste that. So the mind, all types of desires is coming. But just as the ocean, rainy season, so many rivers are just pouring in. But the ocean doesn't just flow over. So the mind of the spiritualist is like that. Senses may bring in so many different things. Thoughts may be there. But the spiritualist, achala, he's on move. He is not affected. He's not moved by that. So Krishna is telling us that we have to become that dhira with this understanding that nothing can happen to the soul. Nothing. So of course Krishna gave the nice example. He says that Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya, that as a person would give up some old clothing and he would put on some new ones. The soul will give up old bodies and will take on new ones. What's the big deal if someone take off some clothes and put on some new clothes? Nobody cries. The person has just changed some clothing. So what if a soul give up an old body and takes on a new body? What's the big deal, Arjuna? So Krishna is saying that a person on the spiritual platform knows the reality. But he comes to that point of realized knowledge by practice, by tapo divyam, by divine austerity. Shuddhid, the mind becomes cleansed. When you take this divine austerity, you refrain from bad things. Tongue wants to eat crazy things. Ears want to hear all the garbage. Those sounds that are not pure, that are not purifying, not the names of God, pure vibrations, they're contaminating, they're degrading. So contaminations are coming from all around. And the yogi, the spiritualist, he has to learn to control these urges. Vacho veg, the urge of the tongue, manasa, the demands of the mind, jiva veg, the tongue, udara, the stomach, upasta, the genitals. All these vegas, these urges, has to be controlled. And Krishna says, one who can tolerate these urges, he can be happy in life. But the person who is running after the sense gratification, that person will never be happy, because just his contact with the three modes and the material nature, every action produces a reaction that simply binds him. So from verses 11 through 30, Krishna deals with this analytical study. What is soul? What is body? Soul is amazing. Jatasi hi dhruvam mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha. For one who has taken birth, death is certain. For one who has died, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, don't lament. Don't lament. Understand prescribed duty. Understand how to perform your spiritual duties. But even religious people are so confused as to what is their duty. So therefore Srila Prabhupada came and Chakshur Unmilitam, he opened the eyes of people how to see Pashyanti Jnana Chakshusha. This Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is very explicit as to what we should do, how we should think and how we should act. But the world, the people are blind in Kali Yuga. Therefore Srila Prabhupada came, Guru, Oma Jnana, we are born in Agyan, in Tama, in darkness, in ignorance. So we need that Guru to open our eyes and then we can see clearly, oh, this is what is karma. This is what is vikarma. This is akarma. When he opens our eyes, then we can see what is action, what is prohibited action, what is the activities that are liberating or freeing one from reaction. We see all these things clearly. So, from verses 11 through 30, analytical study, Sankhya, Gyan, what is matter, what is spirit, he defeats Arjuna's argument of compassion. Nobody will die. Everyone, we are eternal soul, nothing can happen to the soul. So first argument of Arjuna defeated. In our next program, we're going to see how Krishna deals with Arjuna's second argument he won't be able to enjoy. I'm Rajarsi Dasa saying Hare Krishna, and do join us again next week for a continuing presentation.